Hey, what's going on, guys? Brandon here with Texas Plinking Gear, and this is going to be the first piece of gear that is actually a firearm. When I initially started this channel, it was meant to be mostly just optics and kind of other small pieces of gear, and I was going to keep the firearms over to the main channel that's just Texas Plinking. Well, I'm already changing that up, I think, and I finally figured it out. I think this is going to be the game plan. Texas Plinking Gear is going to be for nitty-gritty reviews on anything, guns or optic setups or whatever else. And I'm going to step away from doing reviews and anything too analytical over on the main channel. Reason being, I wanted to appeal to a wider, bigger audience. For anyone who wants to get more into the nitty-gritty, know a little bit more about whatever I was shooting in that main channel, that main video, I will then make a secondary video about that firearm over here. Now, of course, we've got a lot of ground to make up, so I'm actually just going to go back to some older guns that I really want to review, get a little bit more analytical, and of course, this is not content that I would have put in the main channel just because they've already seen the gun, or you guys have already seen the gun. And some people just don't care about getting that far into the gun. They just want to see it shoot, and I understand that. So we're splitting it up. Reviews over here, absolute plinking over there. So I hope you guys are cool with that. We're starting off with this gun right here. For a good reason. I'll explain why. A little bit of sentimental to it. But yeah, this is the Bushmaster ACR, as the title and thumbnail and everything else would suggest. We have some guests today. We're going to be joined by the SCAR 16S and the SIG 5.56 SWAT. Why not? Some other non-AR 5.56 semi-auto rifles. They'll be in the background, but this is all about the Bushmaster ACR. So why is this Bushmaster ACR so sentimental to me? Well, I had this thing for quite a while. Some of you guys who have been in the subject of shooting for a while would think, how long could it have been? It's only an ACR, it's not too archaic. Well, I've only been in the subject of shooting and making these videos. March will be 4 years, so really not that long. And of all the guns I have now, this is my second rifle. It wasn't my second overall rifle. When I was early into the guns, I bought and sold a lot just because I couldn't afford all of it. And as soon as the YouTube channel started, gaining a little bit of traction, I started justifying just holding on to everything and not selling anymore. So yeah, that considered, of all the guns I have, this is one of my earliest. It's the second, actually. Just everything considered, it's by far the highest round count of every gun I've got. This by far I have the most experience with. It's a lot of fun. Everyone that I've ever met that shoots has shot this thing. It's been in a countless amount of YouTube videos. The first time I shot Tannerite was this thing. The first time I shot a hog was with this thing, as well as the first time I shot suppressed was with this gun. So yeah, some reasons on why this one in particular is sentimental to me, but an ACR in general is just a sweet gun, and most people I know with one, it's up there on one of their favorites as well. For a good reason, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. And before we do, just wanna talk about what makes this one mine, what is different about it from one that was out of the box. Went ahead and put an EOTech 512 on there, which I did just because I wanted an EOTech, but now looking back, this kind of looks era correct for the ACR. I think it's pretty cool. I've got a Vortex Micro 3X magnifier on there. Not so much era correct, but it is a really nice magnifier. I've got a Magpul vertical grip. I've also got a Geissele Super ACR trigger in there. The standard one was supposedly mil-spec, but quite a bit heavier in my opinion. So yeah, this two-stage from Geissele is super, super sweet. It's gonna be fun going into the review on this thing and not feel so guilty talking a lot because this is the review, but I promise I won't make it too terribly boring, although it is a pretty fun gun. I'm gonna go ahead and overlay some B-roll, that is footage, the main A-roll that I got over the years. I think that's gonna be what I do from now on. Whenever I make a review, I'm just gonna get footage from the main channel and kind of throw that on here. So let's go ahead and get into it. The ACR, this bad boy was designed by Magpul Industries back in 2006. I would have to say it aged quite well. It was known then as the Masada. In 2008, Bushmaster continued production and future development by taking over the licensing rights. However, development kind of stalled. In fact, at the moment, this gun is no longer in production, so that kind of explains the market on it. In October of 2017, if I'm not mistaken, I paid about $1,700 for mine. And at the moment, in any condition, any color, at the very least, you're paying around $2,000. Sometimes I'm seeing them listed for over $2,500. More than that, if they have more rare components, like a shorter 10.5-inch barrel or 6.8 barrel, we'll get into that a little bit more. But yeah, so now they're well over $2,000. Just in case you were pondering getting one. Interesting thing to note about that while we're on the subject is recently Franklin Armory acquired Remington, which acquired Bushmaster. So it's kind of on them to decide what they're gonna do with everything Remington and Bushmaster, including the ACR. Will we see it kick back into production? I don't know. Unlikely, but maybe, and that would be super, super cool. So ACR, that stands for Adaptive Combat Rifle. And it is pretty adaptive, yet it was meant to be a little bit more adaptive. So let's go ahead and explain why that is. Adaptive, certainly, just because it could totally change form quite a bit from what you see it right now. It's in its total advanced ACR kind of configuration right now with the folding stock as well as the railed handguard. But if you wanted to, with a couple pins pushed, it doesn't take too long. You could totally swap out the handguard, one with no rails, or you could kind of select where to put the rails on that one, a little bit smoother, as well as all kinds of stocks. This is the Dmr stock. There's a fixed stock. Like I said, this one is the adjustable side folder. Most importantly, the adaptive part is the quick change barrel. This thing changes barrels like a machine gun. I'll show you guys the field strip later, but you pop out a pin, has a little ratchet thing, throw it off to the side, barrel totally pops out. They did that not because you're gonna be burning your 5.56 barrels all the time. They were smarter. They knew that people were gonna want to change calibers. I remember watching the Future Weapons episode way before I was legally able to buy a gun, way before I probably shot a gun, honestly. But I loved watching the show, and he was able to make the gun incognito and shoot the enemy's round, as they called it in that video. And it shot the 7.62 by 39, the AK's round. It was able to take a new mag to feed it in with a different lower, change the barrel, and it was shooting a 7.62 by 39. Well, we never got that into production. What we did get was 5.56 or 223. We've got 6.8 SPC, rare bird. Those barrels are going for a lot of money right now, as well as 450 Bushmaster. Different barrel lengths as well. This one's a 16 inch. There's also the 18 inch for the DMR. There's also some 10.5s out there. Maybe some, I think, yes, 14.5 as well. I've never messed with too much adaptability. I've always kind of kept it in this configuration, more or less, maybe a different handguard, maybe a different stock every now and then. But it's always been with the 16 inch barrel. But yeah, you could totally, if you were equipped with all the barrels and everything like that, you could go from an 18.5 inch barrel DMR down to a 10.5 inch barrel side folding carbine. So it's pretty cool, at least the concept. And it was just kind of, once it plateaued with Bushmaster, they just kind of ceased developing or providing the market with anything. So kind of sucks. I hate when people refer to this gun as the rifle that could have been. The gun's here, it happened, and it's still an amazing gun. It just could have been way better and way more adapted and still in production. So I guess that's what they might mean, but it did happen, and it is a sweet gun. This is the ACR stock. It is fantastic, and you know it's fantastic because of how many people are converting their other guns to accept the ACR stock. Scar 16s, for example, I'm seeing a bunch of, I saw like Strybogs with ACR stocks, which is kind of a funny configuration, but a lot of people getting ACR stock adapters to run on their guns, which are not ACRs. Rubber butt plate here, nice shape to it. I never really overthought anything there. It's always been pretty comfortable in my opinion. The comb height has two modes, low, a little bit higher. That's about it. Pull back, down, back forward. Okay, the QD point, only on one side, but you could go ahead and switch that out. I'm a righty, so it's on the left side. Button to fold it right here. Folds off to the right. No lock, but it's not gonna go out on you. In fact, the kind of lock is this little tooth that kind of fits in there. So you see the tooth there, and as I pull it out, you see how it kind of unhinges. So that's kind of a locking feature. But yeah, I never had a problem with it kind of going out on its own. The pistol grip is attached to the lower as one piece, and I don't have a problem with it. The grip angle is fine, it's comfortable, but for people who were hoping that they could put like a different grip on there from like an AR, kind of like the Scar can do, there are aftermarket companies that make different lowers, so you can do that. Again, having it all in one piece between the grip, the entire lower, and the trigger guard, I'm all good with it. Everything's pretty comfortable for me, but the fact that there's aftermarket companies out there, pretty cool. One interesting thing to note is I actually only recently found out about this, maybe about a year ago. Anything Magpul, like on the vertical grip, the texturing, the stippling actually is little baby Magpul logos. Only recently, again, like about a year ago, found out about that. Well, because this was designed by Magpul, that carried over to the stippling over by the mag, as well as the pistol grip. Little Easter eggs for you. Not so much of an Easter egg, which you guys probably saw earlier, Magpul logo on the folding stock as well. So yeah, kind of neat on the actual gun itself. Fire selector is ambidextrous and pretty much the perfect size. Easy to find, but doesn't get in your way. It's just like this little nub right there. Pretty cool. One thing that's pretty cool about this gun is just how well it carries over. If you're familiar with other platforms, especially like the AR-15. I remember just being a recreational shooter, back when I was a new shooter too, 4 years ago, I already had a decent amount of time on an AR-15. And when I jumped to this, the controls were new, but I could find them so easily. Of course, there's a mag release right here. Everything's ambidextrous as well, so what I'm saying, double it for the left side. But yeah, when the bolt is locked back, you normally have a charging handle here or the ping pong paddle. Initially, you don't find that, and naturally, where your good trigger discipline finger would land, there's this little paddle, not a paddle, it's like this little lever, I guess. And naturally, you just instinctively think by throwing that down, the bolt's gonna go forward, and it does. Otherwise, if you don't have a mag and it won't lock back, you could manually do it by pulling up on it. So yeah, I don't know why. I just remember thinking everything just made sense right away. Let's talk about the charging handle. I love it. Non-reciprocating, and it's quite a bit far up here. So again, I'm gonna push down on this. You can see that even though the bolt opening is here, your charging handle is quite a bit up here. And when you're shooting it, non-reciprocating, meaning it stays in place. So you're not gonna whack your hand by holding it up here. Scar, take note. Anyway, but yeah, your little charging handle here has got a little play to it on purpose. It's not broken, just to make everything a little bit more comfortable. It's angled downward, so you're not gonna hit yourself on any optics. And it's gonna ensure that because it's so far forward. Again, the Scar, not so much. This isn't a comparison between the two, but I just thought I'd make note. They placed that very, very well. On this particular handguard, this is the advanced one. Again, more QD points. Not on the standard one, but you can add that later. Moving forward, again, this is a 16-inch barreled version. Right here, we got a U for unsuppressed. So we got an adjustable gas block right out of the get-go. And then flip that over to S for suppressed. Flip it one more time, 90 degrees, and this entire thing comes out for cleaning. We'll probably field strip it a little bit later. It came out of the box from the factory with an AAC 51 tooth flash hider. A couple little things here and there I forgot to mention. Actually, in the stock itself, the advanced one, this little rubber thing right here is a battery compartment. You nicely fit 2 AA's in there, which I've had for the last 4 years, and I just took out because my lav mic was dying, so I needed my 2 AA's. So there you go, ACR storage compartment saves the day. You also got a battery compartment in the grip itself for another AA or two 123A batteries. Did I say that right? 1 AA or 2 123s. There you go. In addition to the 2 AA's in the stock. And that works out pretty nicely because again, I got the EOTech 512, which takes 2 AA's. So if I ever have a problem with that, easy swap right away. Pretty sweet. That was a nice follow-up.
How good is this camera when it's wet?
Not that good. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some shooting impressions. My first time shooting it was, of course, unsuppressed. And right away, what I thought was the recoil impulse was just super, super nice. It was just nice and soft. And as time has gone on and I've shot more and more guns, I'm only affirming that more and more. And again, I have the most rounds with this gun. And of those rounds, most of them are suppressed. But talking about unsuppressed, right away, even if you only shot a little bit, if you shot a buddy's AR a year ago, if you shoot this thing, you'll know the difference right away, but you don't realize how big of a difference it is until you just come off shooting an AR-15, whether experienced or inexperienced. If you shoot an AR-15, shoot a couple rounds with it, and immediately jump to this thing, it's just so much softer. It could do with a little bit of the weight. Usually the direct impingement standard AR-15s kind of come over gas just to kind of run more reliably in adverse situations. Whereas this right here, you know, I don't know why. I guess these piston driven stuff just, I don't know. I just find them a little softer. As good as it is, when you put it in the suppressed mode and put a can up there, it's like a 22. I know that's kind of like an easy cop out, but it really is. It's just like a little tap tap. Not much to it. It's still a full speed 5.56, so it's probably wise to wear hearing protection just because of the crack of the sound barrier. So it's not exactly quiet, but certainly compared to even a suppressed AR-15, the entire system of it just runs so happy, just incredibly happy. I remember when I first got into shooting, like I said, I've had this gun when I was first getting into shooting. I was just curious about everything on how far it could shoot. I don't know why. It could have been a 22 long rifle pistol. I was curious how far it could shoot. And so I threw on a 3-9 by 40, maybe 44 on here, and went to a range that has since closed, tip of the hat for them, Best of the West and Liberty Hill. Shot 750 yards with this thing. If I was doing a review nowadays, I wouldn't think to shoot 750 yards because it's an ACR, it's not meant for it. But I didn't know any better, and I did, and I actually had pretty good success with it. Might go back to the archives and show some old footage. It did pretty darn well.
Trained her well.
I'm not gonna lie, it has been a while, but let's go ahead and do like a pretty brief field strip on the thing, kind of show you guys how well it was designed, on how quickly you can take it apart, put it back together. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pop this pin, and this pin, get them started, and then yank them out. Then we can go ahead and split upper and lower. With that pin out already, we can just go ahead and slide that. So let's go ahead and go with the upper. We should just tilt this, push this forward, and twist it slightly. And then that all comes out. Go ahead and pop it out a little bit, and then hold this thing because it's gonna wanna fly out on you. That little pin comes out. Then we have our firing pin, spring, and then this piece right here should just fall out as well. And then there's a bolt assembly. And that's it. Next, we need to remove the handguard. That's this pin right here. This one, for some reason, sometimes can be pretty stiff. Not too bad, there we go. Forward, and there's our handguard. Here's what I was talking about with the kind of ratcheting tool. Kind of looks like a machine gun. This right here, pull that down, hit the plunger, push off to the right, remove that piece, or just kind of pull it upwards. And it's been a while, let's see how stuck it is. That wasn't too bad. There we go. And that's actually it for this upper right here. Go ahead and take this piece out here. Let's see if it wants to. Okay, it's not too bad. Usually it gets kind of gunked up. There we go. Okay, and that's the majority of the field strip. So now we're just gonna go ahead and reverse process that, which shouldn't be too bad. Boom. If you guys are wondering if that holds 0, mostly no, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's only off by like a matter of inches. Maybe an inch, sometimes 2, but it's going to be on paper. It's going to be good enough, good enough accuracy. But to get that fine 0, readjust your EOTech or whatever you got on here. Doesn't hold the 0 perfectly well. Thought I'd mention that, but hey, for having a quick change barrel, not many guns have that. All right, guys, coming to the end of this review video. Now, to summarize my thoughts, let's go ahead and just do some pros and cons. The pros, pretty much just, if you need to rewatch the video, go for it. I do love this gun. Recoil impulse is awesome. I think it looks awesome. It's super comfortable. And I think it's, well, for one, I made money on it already because it's going up in value. So I guess if that's a pro, then fantastic. But otherwise, it's super cool to have a really recognizable gun between people who are already gun people, certainly video gamers, Call of Duty fans. My generation for sure is a fan of this gun. And you don't see them too often, but anyway, the pros list can go on and on and on. You can talk about the quick change barrel if that's a pro for you, whatever else. The cons list is something that you probably want to pay attention to a little bit more, if I'm guessing. And the cons list, thankfully, is pretty darn brief. Let's go ahead and talk about the first one on why I have gaff tape here. Now, this is another battery storage compartment. Like I said, you have a little tab here, pull it out. Pretty standard on Magpul grips. Now, the tab did not break, but for some reason, I would say probably 1 in every 200 rounds, 300 rounds, my little battery compartment would just plop out. And luckily, I found it every single time, but it happened a lot. Just under a little bit of recoil, that thing would just plop out. Find it on the grass. Sometimes I barely even found on the grass. I'm like, who left this here? Oh, that's mine. Fantastic. So I didn't want to lose it. I put a little strip of gaff tape here, and to ensure that that stayed there, I wrapped the ends one more time with gaff tape. So there you go. It makes it mine, but I don't really use that battery compartment. I use the one here more often, but that's why that's there. Another con, a little bit more severe, but it got fixed, thankfully, was this little plunger. Not the entire system, but this little plunger right here. You have to press to throw it in suppressed or unsuppressed mode to switch it. That plunger was one day missing. I know a few people with ACRs. I've read a lot about ACRs, and no one's ever had that happen. This was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I called Remington, and they were great. They overnighted the entire new piece. I'm talking about this piece right here. And I didn't even need it. I only needed the plunger. They overnighted this entire unit to where I was just able to more easily, just kind of throw the whole thing in. And so that certainly was nice to see. But now my last con is if that happened now, that wouldn't happen. This thing is no longer in production. Who do you talk to? Who knows? Pretty bittersweet on that one. Mostly bitter, but if you're already an owner on it, you're pretty happy that you already got your hands on one. But if not, kind of sucks, because I think most people need one in their life. I've been thrilled with it. As far as sentimental value, overall shooting experience, it's got to be up there with one of my favorite guns I've got in my collection. That says something, because I love everything I've got. If I didn't, I wouldn't have it. So yeah, I really, really like the Bushmaster ACR. And I think that kind of covers it. I'm gonna go ahead and hang this thing back up. So forgive me if this video was not exactly perfect. I'm going to be trying. This is the pilot episode for kind of the new studio here. Kind of threw some lights together, just kind of last minute. But eventually I think I'm trying to get a little bit more systematic with everything, kind of leave everything in its place to where everything kind of looks the same. Try to find the exact best studio setup. And we'll get rolling on content. If I could do a video like this weekly, that would be awesome. But give me some time. Need to set some stuff up. In any case, this being the pilot episode, if you will, I hope you guys enjoyed it, because there is probably more to come. Just bear with me, like I said. But that does it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys next time.